Okay, I think we should start. Apologies for running a few minutes late. We just had a few technical issues. So first of all, I'd like to welcome and thank everybody for joining us and welcome you to the launch of the 2021 Department of Architectural Science year-end show. As always, the year-end show is a culmination of the best of student work completed over the last year by students in our various programs. It's an opportunity to highlight the talent, hard work, and skill that goes into creating work that's often cutting edge, often pushing boundaries and responding to issues of our times and addressing important issues that affect all of our lives. By tackling difficult topics like building equitable and just communities, addressing climate change, working and living through a pandemic that we've all had to endure over the last year or so, these projects show the creative and important solutions that our students can offer to the difficult issues of our time. As we know, this has been a challenging and difficult year for our students and indeed for all of us. So for this discipline, for our discipline of architecture and building science and project management, it's particularly because of our collaborative, hands-on and deeply immersive pedagogical approach, deeply immersed in a studio culture, the isolation that accompanies virtual learning has been particularly challenging. So as chair, I'm really proud and pleased that to see this year's selected works in the exhibition. The work on display recognizes students who have gone over and beyond in overcoming the challenges that we've all had this year to create work that exemplifies the academic rigor, the outside of the box creativity and the technical skills that our programs and our department value. It's a recognition of very high achievement to have your work being shown in this show. So I congratulate everybody who's represented here. I'd also particularly like to mention those students that are graduating this year, who we cannot see off personally and say goodbye and congratulate them, unfortunately. But I'd like to congratulate you on behalf of the whole department and wish you all well. And I hope you stay in touch, and we wish you all the great success as you move into industry and into various future roles. Some of you will be coming back to our graduate programs, and we look forward to seeing you there. So I don't want to speak too long, so I'm going to wrap up with just a few thanks. First of all, I'd like to recognize the many people in our department who have helped make this exhibition happen. This is a team a full team that needs to participate to make this happen. So all the students, the faculty and the staff working together to giving us something to celebrate, and also the advantage this puts by putting it on the internet, therefore allowing a wider audience to see all this work. In particular, thanks to Alex Bersonal for all of her work in leading this effort to put all this work on the website and to celebrate all of our work. We'd also like to thank our exhibition sponsors who are supporting our students' work, and include Azure Magazine, Peller Architectural Solutions, Raw Architects, Montgomery Sizem Architects, and Baldessera Architects. Thank you for your support of our students' work. So I hope you enjoy browsing through the website that you can see shared on the screen. I would just like to mention that unfortunately we have a bit of a technical issue with the links to the individual years work of each year. So you can scroll through the all projects work and see all the projects that way, and hopefully the links will be working a later day or tomorrow. So the next part of this event, we will have short talks by different faculty members who have been involved in work at different levels of the program. So we'll start with Russell Richmond talking about the Building Science graduate program and the work produced there. Then Marco Polo will talk about the Master of Architecture work by students in that program. And then we'll work down from fourth year with Paul Flurker, Associate Chair for Curriculum Mobility, talking about fourth year work. Then Carlo Parente, who is one of the coordinators of one of the studios in third year, will be talking about third year work. George Capellos, one of the coordinators from the second year studio, will talk about their work, and then we'll wrap up with first year work, which Colin Ripley will present. So I'm going to hand over to Russell now to start the process of talking about the work in the Building Science graduate program, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everybody. And I echo Mark's words, congratulating everybody and highlighting again that, yes, this is a real honor to get your work up at our year-end show. So as Mark said, I am going to talk about the graduate program and in building science. And we have 2 submissions that you can see on the website, and they are both coming out of our building science graduate studio, which Mark actually ran with a former graduate of our building science graduate program, Hayes Zernhelt. And the whole studio was designed around submitting designs to the United States, the US Department of Energy Solar Decathlon design competition. I won't spend much time on that. It's a national competition, it's an international competition, 63 teams from 58 institutions around the world. And we do very well in that. And once again, our students finished second in 2 big important categories, the schools category and the office category. And the one team, Team Regeneration, also got the Smooth Operator Award, which it sounds silly, but it's not, because it represents excellence for industry engagement. And that's just a testament to not only our graduate program Building Science, but all of our programs in the Department of Architectural Science, because we are heavily connected to industry. So bravo to that. And they're wonderful projects. It's lovely that they're both different because of the 2 different categories. And I urge you, once the links are working fully, to peruse into those projects. And you know, I even challenge you to go deeper and go check out the US DOE Solar Decathlon site, and you'll get a better feel for just how amazing this work was. So congratulations to them, to both teams from our graduate building science studio, and well done to Mark and Hayes for shepherding the students' design into this amazing showing at this year's competition. Thank you. So Marco, I believe you're going to talk next.
Okay, thank you, Russell. So it's my pleasure to introduce the work that represents the Master of Architecture program. And what you see on the website is some samples of selected work from the 2 Master of Architecture studios. The Fall Studio, AR8101, which is the studio in critical practice, and the Winter Studio, AR8103, which is the studio in collaborative practice. The Fall Studio, this past year, was led by Paul Flurka and Will Galloway. And it was a particularly challenging time in that studio, because that is the studio that, under pre-COVID conditions, had a very significant travel component. That studio, as many of you will know, over the past few years, has participated in alternating years with either the Biennale of Architecture in Venice, and in alternating years with the more recent Chicago Architecture Biennial. It was not possible in the October of 2020, to travel to these events, and this past year was to have been the Venice Biennale. But the instructors decided to work with the theme of the Biennale, which was not held, but which had already been in the planning process. And that theme was, how will we live together? One of the things that you will notice when you look at the graduate studio work is the tremendous variety, extraordinary range in the way the projects have been approached by the students. And this is very much a reflection of the high degree of independence that these studios afford individual students. So the intention is, as students enter the graduate program, that their work starts to veer very much into areas of their own individual research interests, all in the service of preparing them for their graduate thesis. So you'll notice, if you, as you can see, what's scrolling on the screen right now is the project by Adam Hollings and Emily Fagoo. The theme of this particular project is Media Factory, the Digital Consumer Utopia. And you can see again the sort of really exuberant sort of representational language that they're using here. There's a couple of other projects from that studio, and again you can see the tremendous variety. Jack Hachier and Meredith Davis took on the theme of the workplace, and they did so by intervening on the icon of the Seagram building in New York, Mies van der Rohe. The Winter Studio, excuse me, focused on the theme of net zero carbon. That studio was led by Professor Cheryl Atkinson and Carol Phillips. And Carol is a principal at Moriyama and Tashima Architects, and was the principal in charge for a project you may be aware of because it's had an awful lot of attention, the Arbor project for George Brown College down on the Toronto waterfront, which is built of heavy timber. And so that was one of the areas of interest in that particular studio, was the use of heavy timber in the development of a project for the Toronto waterfront. And again, you can see that the specifics of each project are quite different. Again, the students very much encouraged to pursue their own particular take on the larger theme that is ultimately set by the instructors. So again, as has already been mentioned, we're having some technical challenges with access to the projects this evening, but I hope you will take the time to return and explore these in greater detail. There's a real richness, I think, to the work you're seeing coming out of these studios, and I hope you'll have the opportunity to dig a little deeper into those. So thank you very much. I think I'm passing the baton to Paul, I believe.
Yes, thank you very much, Marco. Hello, everyone, and welcome again from my side. The chair has asked me to speak this evening as associate chair on behalf of the instructors teaching in the fourth year. And I want to contextualize the fourth year first before I announce studios, the students' projects, and the instructors from the recent fall and winter terms. And so the fourth year at the Department of Architectural Science is perhaps, I would say, the most diverse in content, in opportunities, and in offering to deepen knowledge previously acquired. So after being prepared in the accredited 3 years of the undergraduate program, students have several options to further their career paths. And one is to advance during a co-op term in an office after accomplishing third year before re-entering into the academic program in the fall year, a year later. You might see it maybe analog to London's King Cross Station platform 9¾ in Harry Potter, located between the end of the third year and the beginning of the fourth. This analogy doesn't necessarily in continuity mean that they all will become magicians, at least not right away. Other offered immediate paths after third year are to choose from 4 options in the fourth year of the program at the department. And the options are either a concentration in building science, project management, architectural design and theory, or something you would probably better phrase with an open architectural science option, allowing to move freely between the studios and courses offered in the fourth year. So all of these options prepare students for graduating in the program with a Bachelor in Architectural Science. Students will possibly continue one of the soon 3 graduate programs at our department: Master of Architecture program, Building Science program, and the new Project Management in the Built Environment program starting next year in 2022. Or they maybe continue at another promising institution. For all options in fourth year, students also have the opportunity for a global learning term to go on an academic exchange to one of our close partners. Exchanges have become a growing and a very robust program. In the upcoming winter term, 2022, we hope to send 29 students abroad to international universities. That is the highest number we've ever had. Perhaps the following year's end show includes work from students taking studios during an exchange to share and acknowledge their work and to display how and what content other faculties, other universities educate. Unfortunately, in this year's End Show, projects from studios abroad are missing. So due to COVID-19, they were canceled last year and also for this year. So here we also hope for representation in the following years when we can proceed with our program's full mobility and travel option. This year's End Show presents work from a cross-section of in total 13 studios that took place between fall and winter term. So from the fall term studios, there's the studio Lighthouse, and that's presenting are Lena Ma with her Hashimoto house, Tatiana Astrina, a house for Johann Sebastian Bach, and Benjamin Bombin with Light Machine. These were supervised by Dr. John Circa. Studio Four Futures, Caleb Calmoin with Fourth Dimension, Leanne Verdina, Game of Life, Vivian Kinuthia with Rebirth, supervised all by Dr. Colin Ripley. Studio Sacred Spaces, Chanel Ways and Seaman Mabuk with the Church of St. Lucy, Vanessa Panning Batan Serezzo, Saijin Ilangiko, Church of St. Archangel Raphael, Samantha Stein and Elizabeth Young, together the Ecclesia Rosa Mystica, all supervised by Edward Voish. The studio, the Architecture Museum, Shumal Amir, Museum of Architecture, supervised by George Capellas. Project Management Studios in the fall term present International University Center in Coventry by Abraham Pez, Daniel Coe, and Nicole DeClaro. From the winter term studios, and this year, the studio Ryerson Architecture Research Center, Justin Arbisman with his project, and a group project by Benjamin Bombin, Gabriel Garofalo, and Andrew Lee, supervised by Marco Polo. Studio Develop, Express, and Narrate, Shumal Amir from Close to Open, Sine Emri with Reconnect, Bayazit Square, a square in Turkey, supervised by Joey Giamo. The studio Rural Futures, Leanne Verdina presenting Campbellford Rural Market, supervised by Dimitri Papandreou. The Project Management Studio, a group project by Vivian Kwan, Stephen Ju, and Nang Xiao, the execution of Coventry University campus, supervised by Dr. Paul Poe. The studio Let Me Explain, Lina Ma Diabolo Labrum, Rio de Janeiro's Dragonfly, supervised by Vincent Hui. Studio Terminal Zero, Rita Wang, Terminal Zero Morpho, and Shengnan Gao with Terminal Zero, supervised by Mark Tholen. So that is it from my side. Congratulations to everyone presenting in this year end show. And I would like to pass it on to Carlo, third year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. I was the studio coordinator for the winter semester of the third year studio, and also taught in the fall semester, where Cheryl Atkinson was the coordinator. So I'll start by introducing the faculty. In the fall semester, Cheryl and I taught with Parentat Bat, Michelle Grant, Alex Lille, Garth Noberton, Arthur Wigglesworth. So they formed our ASC 520 teaching team. And during the winter term, I taught with Paul Florke, Will Galloway, Michelle Grant, Ivan Martinovich, Garth Noberton, and Edward Voice. So the third year is the integration year, where multiple components of our students' education come together. It builds on the co-requisite courses that were taught in the first and second year, as they are intended to feed into the ideas and processes of the project and work of the studio in the third year, across both the winter, across the fall and winter semester, which makes this studio somewhat unique in that the project continues across the entire year. So during the fall semester, the students take on the schematic design of the project that is typically a step up in complexity from their previous studios. And in the winter semester, students continue to develop their projects in teams of 2 to a design development level. This year, Cheryl Atkinson developed a very interesting proposal and prompt for the year, as the students took on the design of a 4,000 square meter new building for the NIA Center, which is an existing not-for-profit arts organization that supports and promotes an appreciation of the arts across the African diaspora for the Oakwood Vaughan Little Jamaica community here in Toronto. There were multiple sites and the students approached the integration in the fall from the standpoint of context, where site, social, cultural, and political issues were engaged and researched to come up with a project. Students learned about the challenges the neighborhood is experiencing from real estate speculation to gentrification and the impacts of the Eglinton crosstown construction and the pandemic on the Black and other small local businesses. External guests provided context and insights via Zoom. These guests included Adam Aikyumpeng, who is the program director for NIA, and she talked to the students about NIA's mandate and its multidisciplinary programming in visual arts performance. This helped the students to understand the mandate and the programming of the facility as a venue for showcasing work of the African diaspora and also the education and programming component that was meant to nurture and mentor and train Black youth in the arts. Tura Wilson of SOCA presented an urban design and social analysis report, which he helped to prepare, that was commissioned by the City of Toronto. It was called A Black Business Conversation on Planning for the Future of Black Business and Residents on Eglinton Avenue West. This helps the students to understand the issues directly from the perspective of the community. Don Schmidt of DSAI presented precedents of similar venues and how performance spaces of this type work. So building on the fall semester project brief, in the winter semester, students continue to investigate the design of the NIA Center. The integration, the intention was to go from the integration of context to the integration of various systems and architecture to develop the projects to a design development level. The students started the semester by dividing into teams of 2. So this was also new and different than some of the other studios, and that the students worked in teams. So the teams were based on shared ideas and ambitions for the project. The semester was divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 was the schematic design synthesis, where students began to rethink their projects based on a collaborative approach, addressing their fall ASC 520 semester final review comments and the further investigation of site and program. So this was a 5-week process that involved a fragment model that the students engaged with digitally and physically. So even though students were working from home, a lot of our students did engage in the act of building physical models, which was important to the idea of this studio. And then the last component of the studio was, I should mention that during this phase 1, the students were given chalk talks related to operational modeling and the regulation and expression of structure in architecture. And for the final 7 weeks of the semester, students developed their projects collaboratively to a design development level. So the design of the envelope, the relationship between structure and envelope, and the architectural integration of MEP systems and the integration of interior elements, materials, finishes, was all emphasized with the intent of reflecting and reinforcing an architectural position for their projects. So this phase also included some guest talks. We had chalk talks, internal chalk talks relating to the integration of building code and drawing techniques. We had an external talk on the integration of MEP systems and also passive and active systems. And that was given by Craig Burton of Interface Engineering. There was also a consultant day where students had the opportunity to meet and discuss via Zoom breakout rooms their design and the integration of MEP systems and structure. So this was with Craig Burton of Interface Engineering again, and also David Bowick of Blackwell Structural Engineers. So the work that you're seeing on the website really highlights the projects that were able to look at the integration from a social and cultural standpoint, and being able to translate these ideas through architecture and engaging in spatial conditions, material, and tectonics. So that was the third year, and I invite all of you to, again, look at the hard work of our students that is displayed on this site. I'm going to pass it on now to George, that's going to talk about our second year.
Thank you, Carlo, and thank you to all my colleagues for talking about their students' work. I was delighted to lead the second year studio in second term, ASC 301. Vince Huey led the first term. I don't believe he's speaking today, but I'll talk about our work in the second semester. For our studio, we decided, or I decided, that it would be really important for us to visit and focus on the life of a small town in Ontario. And we focused on the town of Bancroft in Ontario, which is about halfway between, I would say, the city of Toronto and Ottawa, in the just on the edge of the Canadian Shield. And the challenge of the studio in addressing this issue, or this community of Bancroft, was one of housing. And we looked at the question of the current pandemic, which is encouraging many people in metropolitan areas to consider the ways in which they live, and possibly think about the possibilities of moving to a smaller community for lifestyle change, for perhaps access to different kinds of amenities, and also the life that a smaller town might provide for families with young children, or people who are in empty nesters or in their retirement years. So the town of Bancroft was our selected site. And the town is a very interesting town. It's a population of about 4,000 people. It's located, as I said, on the edge of the Canadian Shield. It's a former mining town that has now become a service center of that part of Ontario. It serves a community, a region of about 25,000 people. And the town of Bancroft was very keen on our engagement, as well as the county that Hastings County, and both are interested in the prospect that, with the changing demographics and also the interest of people from metropolitan areas of moving to a smaller town, that they have actually undergone a revision to both their planning and their regulatory framework to anticipate and to promote housing. So our studio is about the technical and regulatory environment. And so we took a very close look at the town of Bancroft. The challenge was, how do you build housing for a variety of different different residents in this town? And we chose the main street of Bancroft, and we identified 6 sites along the main street, North Hastings Streets. These are all sites that are currently either vacant or up for redevelopment. And they averaged about half an acre each. And it was really interesting because students were invited to understand the town, to actually begin to think about the way that the town could grow and housing could be accommodated in keeping with the character of the community. So the 6 sites were along the main street of the town, and the studio evolved in 3 distinct parts. We looked at the idea of housing as a type, and students examined various types of housing that might be appropriate in this community. The second part was focusing on the idea of place. We couldn't visit Bancroft, but Bancroft came to us. We had discussions with the planners, the landscape architect, the municipal officials, people in the community about Bancroft. And in the third part of the studio, we looked at the idea and the design of home. And students were invited to design a housing complex that would include a community center for not just the residents of that complex, but for be open to the people of the town of Bancroft. So the outcomes, we had a really wonderful array of projects that were presented. It was a tough choice on my part to identify 4 projects that would represent perhaps the range of work. And the 4 are by Julia DiGiorgio. You see them here: Jessica Amyo, Kelvin Hang, and Evan Hills. My apologies. And so those 4 projects actually looked at the ways in which the sites could be developed. We looked at the zoning issues. We looked at structural and technological issues, building code. We invited students to actually look at the ways in which housing could be built in this town that would incorporate some of the more traditional forms, but also provide amenities for the residents of the community. So the outcomes are there. And the outcomes were really quite important, because from my perspective, it was quite valuable for us to go to a place that we couldn't visit, of course, but most of us live in the GTA or live in from metropolitan areas. So examining the prospects and the possibilities that could be developed by creating architecture, well-considered residential architecture that was well-designed, that was responsive to social and community needs, that also met the requirements of planning and the building code, was really critical in this studio. So I really want to say thank you to my 8 colleagues, my 7 colleagues: John Circa, Baruch Stone, Y.T. Leong, John Ingro, Scott Sorley, Rob Coelho, and Julie Urso, my 3 graduate assistants, Adam Hollings, Andrew Azes, and Connor Mitchner, and also to the department for encouraging us to pursue this studio. I'm hoping that we will have the chance to do this again next year. And it will, I hope, also give us a chance to visit Bancroft. We're planning to take this material to the town of Bancroft. The library there is interested in showing this work. And the point that I'm making in this studio is that we as architects have the possibility to engage in communities, to demonstrate ways in which architecture, great architecture, can be environmentally responsive, socially also responsible, but also creative, and create very important ways in which a community could grow and develop into the 21st century. So thank you for that. And thank you to all the students who participated and to the support of the department. It was great work and we had a good time. We had a good time, even though everything was virtual. And I think that the students came through amazingly well. All the best. Over to you, I guess, Colin.
Yes, thank you, George. Great work from your studio, George. That looks very impressive. I'm excited to see more of it, especially since I know some of those students from first year last year. And I'm also struck by the intensity of every studio that we've shown, by the amount of effort that's put in organizing these studios, and of course by the incredible work that students are bringing to bear. So my job at the end of this this night, but at the beginning of the story, so to speak, is to think about how you introduce students to the idea of architecture. How do you bring them into this world of let's call it for the moment, the design of buildings? Everybody, of course, knows what architecture is, right? Well, in fact, virtually nobody knows what architecture is. I don't think I know what architecture is. But somehow we have to get people to the point where they can, without necessarily being able to define what it is, at least participate in its making somehow. So my role in the department this year was to run the second semester studio, the winter studio. June Kamazar, who's the associate chair undergraduate, is not speaking tonight, but she is in charge of the first semester studio, which tries to approach this question of how do you bring students into it by talking about the idea of drawing and model making, communications in a more general sense. All of these skills without which you can't really participate in architecture. And I think June and her team did a remarkable job. And I can say that because the skills that we inherited in the second semester were already at quite a high level. The first semester studio ended with a very small building. And you can see some examples on the website. I'm not going to speak more about the fall studio, but I will speak a little bit about the winter studio. So our studio is the first of the design studios per se. That is the first of the studios that's called a design studio as opposed to a communication studio. And its subtitle is Site and Program. And Site and Program because we imagined way back when the program was developed that the most fundamental thing that an architect does, the most basic thing that you might do as an architect is to take a program, usually a program that's been given to you by your client. Your client says, you know, I want a house with 3 bedrooms and a swimming pool and a 16-car garage, and you put it on a site. And usually the site also comes to you from your client. Your job isn't, at its most basic level, isn't to design the program, although sometimes architects do that. It isn't to choose a site, although sometimes architects do that, but it's to find that conjunction of how the site and the program come together. But we want to do a little bit more than just simply talk about that process of bringing site and program together, and also talk about what it is to make architecture. And to talk about what it is to make architecture in a way that is maybe a little bit different than the way I was taught, a little bit less technical perhaps, although the technical aspects are of course important, but in a way that was in keeping with things that we've been learning about equity and diversity and dealing with different cultures. And so the process that we used, that we developed in order to do this, is this idea of the story. So we thought of architecture as a way of telling stories of the land, stories of the site, as indigenous cultures might call it, and also telling the stories of the people who are using the building, and also allowing those stories to get told in other ways. And then we had to decide how to do it in terms of site. Site, of course, is a difficult issue for this first design studio, given that normally we would take the students out and we would go to a site near the school somewhere and we would talk about, you know, the characteristics of the site and so on, and students would look at it and they would sketch and they would take photographs and so on. But we can't do any of that this year. So we decided instead to learn about site in a different way. And so we chose a site, which you can kind of see behind me here, that probably none of our students would be able to go to, a site in Venice. And we set our storytelling as at the Venice Biennale. So we decided, we approached Venice, first of all, not through maps, not through drawings, but through film. So we started by having students watch films about Venice. And then we moved from there to telling stories about Venice. So we wrote stories, and then we built stories out of found materials. What does it mean to build a story? Well, the students were able to figure that out. And then we drew stories, and we drew stories in an architectural manner. And then we progressed from there to the design of a small building, but the first building of any real scale that these students had designed, which was a storytelling center. So a place that was on the site of the Biennale at the Arsenale, if you know Venice, and a site that was essentially three things: right? A room in which to tell stories, a cafe so you can get your coffee afterwards, and an office for the people who manage it. And so the students ran with that. And the results, I think, were amazing. We have 4 projects, and like George, choosing 4 projects from this group was very difficult, and I feel really bad for the students who weren't chosen. But I would like you to just go onto the website. Alex, maybe you can click on one of them. Maybe I see it right in front of you. Yeah, sure. So this is Mohammed Gaffar's project. And you can see this is a first-year student. But you can see the amount of resolution in the project, right? The intensity of invention, the beauty of the renderings. This is absolutely amazing to me for a first-year project. And the others are all at this same level. So all I want to say at this point is thank you to the students who worked amazingly hard, overcame all of our doubts about was it even possible to start a student's career online, and showed to us that yes, it is. It is. And I would also like to thank my colleagues who worked with me on this studio. And let's see if I can remember them all. Leila Farah, Yuri Lashishin, Albert Smith, Christine Liu, Viz Sankrithi, Stanislav Yurkovich, and Alex Lele. And of course, our teaching assistant, Michael Iwola. So thank you very much. That's it for me. Have a look at these images. And once again, thank you. I guess I turn it back to Mark.
Yep. So thanks very much, Colin, and thanks to everybody that's just spoken. So to wrap up, first of all, I just wanted to reiterate some of the comments that Colin made and others about the success that students have achieved despite the really difficult conditions over the last year. And it's just showing the resilience of our students and the quality that they can produce even in situations which perhaps are not ideal. Although maybe there are some benefits to some of the aspects of delivering courses this way that we will be learning to implement in the future. I also wanted to mention that it's great to see the range of different work that is being done in the department, from the graduate building science, graduate Master of Architecture, right through to first year. What an interesting set of studios and issues that the various studios are addressing. And I wanted to thank the studio masters in particular, but all the instructors for the work that they put in to framing and organizing these studios, to position them in such a way to address interesting issues and to allow students to really explore architecture as a way of making a difference in the world. So I think that's a real recognition of the quality of some of the teaching that the students are getting. And hopefully those of you that are in the earlier years have got a taste of some of the types of work that you will be asked to do and some of the sort of range of issues that you may be asked to look at in the future. And I hope that's stimulated an interest to you all. So I think it's time to wrap up. I wanted to just mention one question because it keeps getting raised every time I meet with students and others, is what's going to happen in the fall? Unfortunately, the answer to that is we still can't give you a definitive answer. We still do not know exactly how our programs will be looking in the fall. I think we can be confident that we won't be back to a completely normal way of delivering programs, but maybe there will be some sort of hybrid option. But certainly I'm hopeful that by the end of the next academic year, we can celebrate this event in person together I'm very hopeful of that. Obviously, we will see what happens over the next year, but I really look forward to seeing everybody in our building again and being able to celebrate this work and celebrate the achievements of our students personally. So for now, we have to finish off virtually, and we want to wish everybody a great spring and summer. You've all earned it. Congratulations for getting through this really tough year, and enjoy the summer. And we look forward to those of you that will be coming back in the fall, to seeing you in the fall and carrying on with the great work that you will do. And I invite you again to look at the website to really investigate some of these projects in detail. And we will hopefully have sorted out the technical issues that make it a bit more difficult to find specific projects very soon, and you'll be able to use the links. But you can nevertheless see all the projects under the All Projects banner and review them that way. So thanks to all the speakers, thanks to the students, and we'll wrap up today and look forward to seeing you all back again in the fall. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good luck. Have a great summer.